Hello everyone, welcome to my channel Telecast-tv. I'm Mira Kwangala. You're watching Dele Farotimi speaking today about the theme Nigeria when enough is enough. He was saying that what Nigerians are agitating for has been what other Nigerians have been requesting years back: the change of bad leadership, the change of government that does not have the citizen in mind. He said Nigeria as a country cannot make progress or have good leaders until there is a revolution. Now, he said so many things you would like to know and understand in his statement about Nigeria and its leaders, from the Senate to the executive arm of the government, to the legislative arm of the government, to the judiciary. Endeavor to subscribe. Watch this video to the end. Don't miss trending videos.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to a new week. Our situation has grown so dire that I am becoming quite tired to come before you week in, week out. I rarely accept any television engagement these days because it's the same old shit that one has to deal with every time. It's the same thing. Fela has been dead for almost 3 decades now. But I remember Fela saying in his song, just like that, look and laugh, you find the same frustrations playing out because it was the same things that he was saying yesterday that he had to repeat today. And the preoccupation of any creative or spiritual person is always found within their environment. So if you're an artist or a creative, you speak largely to what you feel in your society. So every time I come to speak with you, I've had only one thing to speak about: Nigeria, the many tribulations of the Nigerian. This, after a point, begins to sound like lamentations, self flagellation. But I am caught of a different hue. I do not merely lament, I offer solutions. My first engagement with you as a public was in my book, Do Not Die in Their War. That book has a 61-page draft constitution annexed to it. It wasn't just my work. I had the help of good men, particularly Ralph Nwoke. We didn't just drop something on you lamenting. Yes, I lamented. I bemoaned, and I'm still bemoaning the destruction of this blessed country. But in the midst of all of that, I have never been shy of offering solutions. And one of such is the draft constitution to which I allude. I'm laying this foundation because I have very grave issues to discuss with you. It could very well be that I'm discussing with you today, or it might very well be that what I'm saying is for posterity as I've always said, perhaps another generation would arise that will need to find its way to sanity. But if it must find its way to sanity, it must know how the country became insane. So my interventions, my writings, sometimes I'm forced to assume that perhaps it might not be meant for you. It might be that it's meant for a generation that is not here yet. But it is more important for me that I tell you or write them so that at least somebody else might run with it if you are not the ones that are meant to run with it. Yorubas have this self appellation that is available to tellers, not truth sellers, truth tellers. And what does it say? I'll interpret. It says that if I told you that there is a fire atop of the waters, demand his ashes of me. Do not quarrel or argue about the authenticity of what I am saying. It has pleased God to grant me the capacity to make a similar boast about our country, Nigeria. Over the years, I have said some things that most of you considered completely insane, and I made it easier for you to digest by suggesting that I'm the insane one when I always knew that it was all of you that are actually crazy. You've built a society where you deny the truth, even when it's slapping you in the face. But that is not my point this morning. I just need us to establish very quickly that the things I have to say this morning is not born of madness. It is born of having no respect for the lies that you have internalized and become acculturated to. So I will tell you, you may care to hear and act on them, or you may care to treat them yet again as the rant of a madman. But I guarantee you, in the fullness of time, my words will come to pass, just as the ones that I told you before. So this morning, I want to talk to you. And I was thinking, what would my topic be? What I have to say, I didn't need any gainsaying. I have my notes, my guardrails, but I really do not need them. But I'm keeping them so that I may not derail too far from the point that I need to make to you this morning. So I decided it was going to be titled When Enough is Enough. But it took a while to get there. To get there, I needed to check my YouTube channel to be certain that I haven't used the title before because I have been at this point multiple times. And true to type, when I checked, I found that when I was out of the country sometime last year after coming out of prison, I was away for about 4 months. And whilst I was away, this petroleum tax and this new taxation bill was running through the National Assembly at the time. And I could already see how unjust and unfair the entire idea of Nigerians being taxed in the fashion being proposed was going to be. So I think I preached the sermon along the same line, pretty much along the same line as the one that I'm going to be preaching this morning. So I wanted to be sure. And sure enough, one came up. And when it came up, I realized it was, I've been, well, at the time I said, when is enough enough? But this morning, I want to talk to you about when enough is actually enough. And as I was mulling through my thoughts, I remembered something that Fela had said years ago. And I had the short clip, the video. So I went back to that video. I've always believed that even though I've argued multiple times that Fela was not a prophet but simply a truth teller, because I don't like us romanticizing truth tellers to the point where you begin to ascribe prophetic mantles to them. So I said no. I'd always argued Fela was no prophet. Fela was simply a man who told the truth. Imperfect man like all of us, but he told the truth, and telling the truth rendered him immortal because the truth is immortal. So that was always my argument. But in a moment, I don't know how come that clip was preserved, but that clip went around some years ago, almost like 10 years ago or thereabout. I've had that clip for a while when Fela said, when the time is ready, we go ask them. I've always wondered, how do you talk about the time being ready? It's usually when the people are ready. But Fela didn't say when the people are ready. He said when the time is ready. And if you are a student of semantics, or at some level you understand the spiritual, you will understand that there are times and there are seasons, and within time there are multiple things that happen. The Yoruba understanding of time is where your full understanding of what Fela was saying might come to fruition. And when Yoruba is talking about Igba, Igba speaks of seasons. It speaks of seasons in terms of weather, but it also speaks of seasons in terms of the stages of a man's life. So when Fela said, when the time is ready, we go ask them. I've never managed to shake the impression that Fela was speaking to a moment in time. And when I look at the realities of Nigeria, I've also realized that it will take a moment in time before we may ever have a peaceful revolution. It will take a moment in time when the disparate parts of Nigeria learn to speak together with one voice in recognition of common afflictions. My purpose today is not to deal with the semantics of Fela's word, but it is relevant to my discourse with you, and I needed to deal with that. So I'm going to keep it in the parking space, and I need you to keep it in mind as we travel. Our lifetimes are finite. None of us will live forever. I was at Tisonya Ogbo yesterday because it was Chivayo Adebanjo's first anniversary yesterday. He was a lover of men, of humanity. But the relevance of this is to help you understand that even though he was 96 years old by the time he died, he still died. We all will live for a season. All of us are living in this season. And that is the context in which I was recalling Fela's words about when the time is ready. This is our time. At some point in the life of a man, you're going to have to decide when enough is enough in relation to the tribulations that you may suffer. Systems produce the result that they produce because they were designed to produce those results. When enough is enough is that point where the Nigerian comes to the brutal understanding of the fact that there is a dissonance between the lies they have told themselves and the reality that is facing them. Early in 2021, INEC began to propagate the idea that we were going to have free and fair elections in 2023. This was particularly important for the government of the day because there was simmering anger from the fallout of the massacre that took place at Lekki and other parts of the country on October 2020. The hope, which has now proven to be illusory, was that what we could not get, what we realized that was necessary, that led and fed the October protests, people exchanged their placards for PVC. I helped to sell that illusion because I was equally deluded enough to believe that the system would allow for peaceful democratic change. We bought into the illusion. I recall being labeled more or less a fool by multiple persons who rightly did not believe that there was ever going to be a free and fair election. But I chose to believe. I don't want violence. I've always believed that a free and fair election in Nigeria, regardless of what it produces, would be acceptable to Nigerians. We would at least know that we can subsequently remove whatever error we have made if we voted in what will prove or might prove to be the wrong way. It is the prerogative of citizens to elect their rulers, or ruiners for that matter, as Nigerians did in 2015. But that is not my purpose this morning. So we bought into the illusion. We tamped down the anger at every point. We asked the youth to believe in the power of their votes, and they believed. They sought to register to vote in record numbers across the length and breadth of Nigeria. INEC began his games in the lead up to the election, and Mahmoud the fraud came out multiple times to reassure us. And so did Okoye the forgotten, because history will forget him in the pit of infamy. Okoye came out. We were reassured. Oh, beavers will walk. We use IREF. Why should we doubt men who spoke in the public sphere, backed by the force of law? We believed. And then the magic began. My purpose is not to rehash the fraudulence of Mahmoud. That is long established in history. After that election, a push began to cure what was never ailed by anything. There was always sufficient legislation to show that INEC did not have the discretion to do anything other than to use electronic transmission. It had committed to it by the subsidiary legislations it made under the Electoral Act. His own guidelines flagrantly dismissed. And this was what led people to begin to believe that if the requirements are codified and not open to the discretion of INEC or the mischief of the courts, we will cure this defect. Peter Aka, Randy, brilliant young man, devoted himself to it. I spoke multiple times in support of what he was doing and is still doing. I had very little hope of them ever curing the defect that was never there. But it was important that the system be allowed to show its hand and reveal itself. And Peter kept working. He kept working and it worked. It mobilized a lot of you. Most of us looked on with skepticism because we know better than to trust the system. But it worked and it has kept working. But what has the system done? Akpabio, who has no business whatsoever being in the Senate, who is essentially a bandit in power, led a bunch of bandits, and they are brazenly telling you that they've already rigged the election ahead of time. They are telling you. One of the reps person, I think from Agatu local government, I saw a video of him the other day telling his constituents how they should better go and join the APC, because very soon you'll get nothing if you are not in the APC. 30 governors are in the APC. A one-party state is being forced down the throat of everybody. Let me explain myself. The Nigeria of today is where poverty has come full circle. They have weaponized poverty to the point where your votes are purchased sometime ahead of time. If they get away with what they are proposing, elections will be conducted before the day of the election. It will be fully electronic, don't worry. It would even be free and fair in most cases. Question is, what is free? What is fair? What is free and what is fair? When the discretion of the people have been prefettered ahead of time. The same INEC of Mahmoud Yakubu, where the president elected by INEC has already shown the pathway for the future. Elect me president and you get a plum ambassadorial appointment. So the INEC chairman now knows, just like just like the chairman of the president of the Nigerian Bar Association used to know, that once you became the president of the NBA, you are also going to become the Attorney General of the Federation in settlement of the bar. What led to the compromise of the NBA that it has hardly recovered from. So today, when you are the INEC chairman, few months after the conduct of the election, the beneficiary of your fraudulence would then give you a plum position. It's been normalized. Mahmoud the Shameless accepted it, and today is an ambassador in the Hall of Shame, or shall I say, the Shameless. But that is not my point. My point is this. We live in a country where the same ruiners have not only weaponized poverty, but they have weaponized ignorance. The people's capacity to effectively make informed decisions have already been compromised. You have over 30 million children out of school. You have like 130 million Nigerians living beneath the poverty line. That means they're living on less than 5,000 naira a day. That 5,000 naira covers everything about their existence: transportation, drugs, and I'm talking basic pharmaceuticals, food, clothing, accommodation, name it. Everything is below 5,000 naira a day. So these ones that are even graduates can barely on their own articulate their conditions or make informed decisions because they are barely literate, even though they are certificated. These are the persons that the system is rigging up a system for that predetermines their electoral choices. This is the same system that has built a sophisticated taxation system that is so sophisticated that it has to be administered from France. We're building the Cameroon model of democracy in Nigeria when our tax administration has been subcontracted opaquely to a French entity. We have an educational system that is unknown to anybody. Challenge them in the Ministry of Education, Federal Ministry of Education, to show you the curriculum, the national curriculum. They can't, which is why you are seeing all kind of funny textbooks popping up. How many are you going to monitor? Where is the national education curriculum? You're living in a country where nothing normal is normalized. Everything that should not happen happens routinely. Nigeria has been turned into the devil's, it's not even a workshop, it's a playground. All the children of these demons come here to play, but they play in the administration of our lives. And we're all sitting down if you are talking about when enough is enough, it's been more than enough in this country. We are living in a country where there are multiple educational systems. You have Indian systems, Spanish system, French system. Those ones at least see what they are putting their children in. What is the national curriculum? Who has seen it? That is the country we are living in. Nigeria is already being programmed for destruction. You have illiterate teachers. Almost every trade person that still has some measure of skill or that you can rely on come from some other country into Nigeria, especially in Lagos. They are either Ghanaians, Togolese, Beninois, and most of them are even leaving because of the devaluation of our money, especially when their families are still in their own country. Before they can change Naira to the CD or CFA that they used to send, Naira has become so worthless that it doesn't work for them anymore and they are leaving, going back to their country. The few Nigerian artisans that know how to do anything, the level of fraudulence is scary. And we don't have trade schools. You can't even replace those ones. Nobody is training anybody, nobody is teaching anything. You've got religion weaponized. The other day, you called some prayer meeting and you had thousands, hundreds of thousands responding. But ask them to protest for one day against the evils that have befallen all of us. Lie, lie, they are nowhere to be found. Religion has been weaponized. You see all manner of fraudsters. That was how I saw one the other day. He said when there is going to be a plane crash, God forbid, you should brace yourself and then you should begin to speak in tongue. Imagine where you and these are the kind of persons sat behind pulpits and you have thousands sat in front of them. How do you change a society with persons under the ministrations of such charlatans? So Nigeria has actually passed the point of when enough is enough since quite a long time ago. We've normalized insanities everywhere you turn. Yesterday, I was going through my phone looking for things to delete, and I went into my video file and I saw a video that I believe I shared for this first time, maybe like 3, 4 years ago. The Aramco, that's the Saudi oil company's control room, the command center, and the young sheikh who was conducting the journalist around the center said, "Oh, from that room they monitor every drop of oil produced in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and I believe they produce almost like 5 or 6 times more crude than we do." And when I saw that video, I remembered having just read in the news a few days before how Tom Polo is paid, is it 4 billion uh, monthly to secure the pipelines. Now, for the average Nigerian, you hear that and you jump up and you believe, oh, Tom Polo is not us, Tom Polo. Whatever Tom Polo collects, some people are waiting for their court. He will keep his own part. But a system that is meant to be built in protection of national interest, you see it openly and shamelessly placed in prebendal hands simply because of narrow, selfish interest. A country with a navy had to hire a ragtag army of militants, repentant militants, persons created by the system as the security band for the political bandits are handed the sovereignty of a state. Is that sustainable? Why is it beyond our own capacity to have something similar to what the Saudis have? But it doesn't happen in this country. We never seek to rise up. The focus is almost always on the primitive. The same way we are being told that electronic transmission of the form EC8A, which is the essence of the Beavers and IRF system, is impossible. Let me share a story with you. After the OB legal team had filed its challenge to the fraudulent election of 2023, I was asked to interface with INEC in Lagos State to pick up the election material that will be tendered before the Presidential Election Tribunal. I dealt directly with the persons in INEC at Yaba. The chairman of the State President Electoral Commission, Shegun Agbaje, he never allowed me to see him once. I'd seen him before that time, met him at some forum, and he came across as an honorable man, but his actions proved dishonorable in the extreme. We were not given a single form EC8A. The form EC8A is the form that was meant to have been uploaded onto the Beavers to go to IREV. That is the form that is meant to be captured. That is the form that is the polling level result. In the whole of Lagos State, we were not given a single one because in spite of the contrived announcement of Obi as the winner in Lagos, Obi did win by a much, much larger margin. Tinubu did not make even 15% in Lagos State. It was that shameful. He could not bring a single paper, not one, out of what was meant to come out of every individual polling unit. That was the level of the fraudulence. That is why you see all those TPEX. In Lagos State, it was beyond TPEXing. They could not because Tinubu was beaten in every local government except, I think with the exception of Lagos Island. He was whooped across Lagos. We knew this. But INEC did not give us a single one of those from EC8A, which are meant to be the source document for every other result sheet. So when you have that level of fraudulence that we saw, and the courts, the Supreme Court, the Court of Appeal, the idiots who you hear singing on his mandate, they have stood, they endorsed that fraudulence. Not one from EC8A from Lagos State was given to us. That is already there. And the people said, make this the law. Do not leave it to the discretion of INEC again. And Akpabio has asserted his fraudulence again. Let me say this. Those of you who are busy trending your hashtag, rig and die in 2027, you are wasting your time. 2027 has already been compromised if you accept the fraudulent insertion. If you accept it, 2027 is gone. Now, let me be very clear. I'm not so foolish as to believe for 1 second that it actually requires any magical electoral reform to hand us democracy in Nigeria. I voted in 1993. The totality of that election was conducted with biro and paper. If they had any computer, it must have been in the office of Humphrey Nwosu, the electoral chairman. Everything was conducted with biro and paper, nothing more. And we had free and fair election. The people were committed, and INEC was committed to ensuring that we did. The last election was free and fair. It was INEC under the fraudulent Mahmoud Yakubu that compromised the election. There is no El Dorado that will be fixed by rules, especially when the rules were designed to be disobeyed by those who are meant to administer it. I'm not suggesting that electoral reform would be the magic bullet, but it is a bare minimum, and it at least sustains the illusion that there would be a process devoid of violence by which we might change the system. To deny this is to tell us, and I am not saying this to the system, I'm saying it to those of you who are still busy wasting your time believing that rig and die in 2027 is what you should hang your hat on. Now, don't waste your time with rig and die. If you allow this rigged reform, there will be no need for them to rig. Are we getting it? Now, when you look to what are already in place, the multiple factors of implosion that has been built into the system, and then you take away the people's capacity to peacefully enforce a change of government in the hope that a change of government might lead to a change in this governance system, that does not work for the victims of Nigeria. What you do is that you render violence inevitable at some point, because the first thing you must understand is that the human spirit reflexively rejects injustice. And this is an unjust proposition, to take away from victims the capacity to peacefully, through the ballot, change their situation. When you take the totality of the madness that has overtaken us, the rise of Niger Delta militants, now repentant, whilst the social conditions of the people themselves, the abject poverty, the degradation of the environment continues, what you find is that you are merely postponing the evil day, because those who have been disadvantaged, who have now also been denied the capacity to effect change peacefully, whilst you are empowering persons who have profited of their grievances, you are engendering violence in the future, because those victims will still rise. Get it clear. You look to the north of Nigeria and you see the normalization of madness, such as we are witnessing in Katsina, where bandits, who are in reality terrorists, are mollycoddled by the state, freed from prisons, released from prosecution, bargained with, they are collecting taxes, state is voting money in settlement of these persons, and the victims are offered no relief. You will know that at some point, this obscene abnormality, which is not sustainable, is going to come home to bite us at some point, because it's not like you have a ring fence around Katsina. It simply means that Katsina has become a safe zone for terrorists, known to the system, accepted by the system, paid by the system, mollycoddled by the system, and the tragedy is that it is not restricted to Katsina State. There are other states where the information is not as readily available in the public space as it has become in Katsina. The reality is that vast swathes of Nigeria, this country, have normalized madness. I believe it was in Kebbi that the governor was demanding to know who ordered the deployment of the soldiers who were guarding the place that was eventually attacked and people taken hostage. That is the level of compromise. So when you look at this country, when you see the rise of terrorist Islamists You see the rise of Fulani terrorists moving across the country with impunity. You see the state celebrating nothing, pointing at 30 governors have moved. No governance of any sort is going on. The Minister of Health said only 36 million was released of last year's budget. We have three successive budgets, I'm told, unimplemented. But the system continues to trumpet success. My dear brothers and sisters, the same country where terrorists who have murdered law enforcement agents, yes, they don't enforce laws, they administer impunity, but he was executed. An assistant commissioner of police. And a terrorist will wear his uniform and come for what they call peace and reconciliation meetings, where the state had been ordered not to bring any law enforcement agent in uniform. And a terrorist, the same one who murdered an assistant commissioner of police, wore the uniform. And Nnamdi Kanu is in prison. And there are multiple persons in prison in this country for much less. Nigeria is beyond enough being enough. It is beyond enough being enough. But my purpose this morning is not to lament. It is to tell you that it is time to begin to organize yourselves. Across the length and breadth of Nigeria, begin to organize yourselves. This system has to be confronted, but it must be done peacefully. And I would explain. I'm not so romantic as to believe that because we are peaceful, the state would be peaceful. It has never been in the nature of the Nigerian state to be peaceful. It has always met every demand for change with violence. I should know. I was one of those who had to deal with the aftermath of what it did at Lekki Tollgate. And the persons at Lekki Tollgate bore no harms. All they had were flags. So I'm not unaware of the fact that however peaceful we may elect to try to make it, the Nigerian state would make it violent. I have no doubt about that. But that should not be the reason why we will refuse to act. At some point, we have to move beyond rhetoric. At some point, we need to have some skin in the game. And what is the skin in the game? The commitment to change. That is the first thing I need you to embrace. The commitment to change, to doing things in a different way, to finding another path, a different path to a better Nigeria, one where there is room for all of us, not the one where we're living in now, where we're barely existing while some people are feeding fat of the land. I am working with others and we are trying to build structures, at least the technical structures. I know we talked about eyes. I am still waiting on others to do their own end. I've always confessed my inability when it comes to technical know-how. But quietly now, I'm working with a few others. But long before then, please, I ask of you, embrace the idea that we are capable of much better than this. Understand the urgency of now and the fact that enough is already enough. To be lamenting and expecting and hoping that this system will change anything is a lie. A few days ago, as I was seeking to clarify my topic today, I came across a video by a young gentleman, Ovie, and he was attacking the what he found to perhaps be the snail speed with which my generation has moved in the direction of change. And I asked him, what would you have me do? What can we do differently? He has a whole lot of ideas waiting for him. There are others as well who have recognized the need to act, to move beyond talking. And I'm also working with them. Excellent young men and women across the length and breadth of Nigeria and in the diaspora. And what we are seeking to do is to build platforms that allows you to meet at the state level and then at your local government level. But not just meet to lament, meet to educate yourselves, meet to discuss a different pathway for Nigeria. Protests do not always take place on the road. Sometimes protests take place, begins in your home. We would seek to equip ourselves to educate each other about the kind of change we desire for Nigeria and about how we propose to bring these changes about in a non-violent manner. The uneducated mob is just a mob. Educate the mob, it becomes an army. I need you educated. And I'm not speaking to you who is able to sit down and listen to me on YouTube or some other channel. I'm speaking to the you in the villages, in the mechanic workshops, in the barber shop. That is the level of sensitization that has to be undertaken in order to defeat this system. We are not interested in knee-jerk reactions. We are looking to build an army of conscious persons who are not only willing to vote, but are willing to stand behind their vote in defense of their vision for the future, a better future. It is not beyond our capacity as human beings to imagine a better Nigeria for ourselves and for our children. If it doesn't happen in our lifetimes, if those ideas have to be watered with the blood of the martyrs for the cause, that is fine. But let the future know that there were thinkers in this generation who saw a better future, committed themselves to it, wrote it down, who made it plain that those who read might run with it. We will be looking to ensure that this happens within the next week. Now, let me explain that we've tried once and failed does not mean we should stop trying. If you believe you have the capacity to build the kind of platforms that can carry the kind of things that I'm talking about, feel free to tap me up online. We'll reach out to you as well. The more expertise we have, the merrier. The important thing is this. It's an idea that does not have to be executed by me. If it is visionary, you must live beyond the visionary. The reality is that some of you will never speak with me personally, might hear what I'm saying this morning, might be 10 years from now. Run with it. Votrons are not going to save Nigeria. It will be the victims of Nigeria that will save Nigeria. And if you want the victims of Nigeria to save Nigeria, you would have to educate them in order to build bridges over the many divisions that Nigeria has contrived. The Nigerian in the north, in the south, in the east, in the west have the same pains. The beneficiaries are one. The only thing that unites us is where we sit on the economic ladder. Not tribe, not religion, nothing of that unites. It is the class of your seat in the contraption called Nigeria. Imagine that these were to be a flight. You have first class, you got business class, premium economy, and economy in the typical airline configuration. The Nigerian is perpetually locked in cattle class, and the ruining class are perpetually. They are no longer happy even in business class or first class. They are in private jets, massaging Olosho's feet. So let's be clear. It doesn't matter Whether you are Yoruba, Fulani, Ijaw, Igbo, no, they don't care. It is where you sit in the contraption called Nigeria. It's got multiple layers of membership, zero citizenship. If you are ever going to become citizens, it will be because you found common purposes. As far as enough being enough, the Nigerian cat not only requires a shave, it requires pedicure and a manicure. It should be skinned, if not quartered. But that would only ever happen when you move beyond the idiocies of these divisions. Enough is already more than enough. And if you do not act, acting consciously, there are already sufficient basis for the implosion of Nigeria. It is that implosion that I seek to avoid. I keep speaking, but I never speak to divisions. In the knowledge that you can never divide Nigeria is not designed to be divided. It's designed to consume itself instead of dividing itself. If you can't divide it without killing yourselves, why not seek to unite it so that you can move it forward together? There is a better future in understanding that yes, enough is enough. But that enough is enough for all of us. But it's not enough for the ruiners. And the ruiners are your brothers and sisters. It's easy to point at those from the other side. But the reality is that those who ruin you speak your language. They probably sat in your churches with you as I speak right now. Some of them were with you in the mosque on Friday. Your pastors and imams are members of that class. Or you, who are members of the same class, the class of victims, you divide yourself along multiple lines. Let's build the bridges. Those bridges are to ourselves because our afflictions mirror each other. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. For those who are protesting against these electoral deform moves, it is my own intention that similar moves be made. Can you hear? NEPA is announcing itself after almost a full day of no light in a country where $16 billion was spent by government. It wasn't designed to give you electricity. It was designed to enrich the beneficiaries of Nigeria. When you hear of grid, national grid collapsing, it was because, and it is because national grid is standing gidigba. Enough was enough long ago. It is the failure to organize that has sustained the madness. Organize, organize, organize around ideas. If you already have platforms that we can layer on, reach out to me, hit me up. I'm not that difficult to reach. But there is a need to organize. If we don't, we've lost. And we're not too lost to retrace our steps. Organize. Enough was enough long ago. These people have pushed for too long. We are the ones who have refused to respond because we've been too focused on our divisions. It is time to organize. This system has to be confronted. Enough was enough long ago. Long ago, enough has been enough. What has been lacking is the capacity, not the courage, the capacity to confront minimizing the idea of violence. Let's build that capacity. Enough is already enough. I'm gonna see you next week. Stay safe. This crazy mess we've built for ourselves. Stay safe. God bless you.